Well, the Browns and Titans might suck, but this game means more than the record suggests. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, the Cleveland Browns take on the Tennessee Titans in what is a football game this weekend. The actual game itself probably doesn't, give too much to get excited about. This is two absolutely terrible football teams, two of the five probably worst football teams in the NFL going up against each other in this game. But, at this time of the season when some teams are battling it out, fighting it out for playoff position, other teams are play fighting for draft position. And this is one of those games that will have massive consequences on how the draft order shapes up to finish the year. But before we get into all of that, I will quickly cover this game. I say quickly, I actually mean quickly this time. I've been trying to record this video for 3 days. More tech issues, finally resolved it, but obviously left this one a little bit late, so going to give as quick of thoughts as I can. That's the bad news, on top of obviously Ohio State losing last night, me staying up until 5 in the morning to watch Ohio State lose by deciding to kick a field goal when they should have went for it on fourth down. But that's neither here nor there. This is a Browns channel. The good news of that game was a certain quarterback looked very good if this draft positioning does shape out quite well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As I said, quick thoughts on this game. I'm going to just give the three biggest things that I'm obviously thinking about with this game, and that I think most people will be thinking about as well. But as I said, this is two very bad teams. They have a combined 4 wins. They have a combined 20 losses. This is the 32nd ranked offense in yards versus the 31st ranked offense in yards. This is the 32nd ranked offense in first downs versus the 31st ranked offense in first downs. So let's not expect much offensive output from this game. This is the 2 worst offenses in the NFL. Luckily, if you want the Browns to win this game, they actually do have one unit that is good, at least, the defense, whereas, of course, the Titans are pretty bad across the board. But the biggest, obviously, storyline from this game for the national media, shall we say, for the average fan, is, of course, Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward. These are two guys that, 10 months ago, these were viewed as the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft. There were discussions and debates about which guys should go first overall. Should it be Shedeur Sanders? Should it be Cam Ward? They had the whole pre-draft thing of them throwing together, I'm legendary. I can't even remember what Cam Ward said now. Neither of them have been anything close to that so far in their NFL careers. I don't think that either player has brought the impact that they were hoping to their respective NFL teams this early on. Of course, different circumstances have affected that for both guys. But as I said, these are two guys that were, dubbed by a lot of people as the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft. Fast forward to April, and Cam Ward wins that battle. He goes first overall, whereas, Shedeur doesn't just lose that battle. He fell all the way to the 5th round. Of course, a lot of people, Shedeur fans, others as well, myself included, did not think that Shedeur Sanders should have fell to the 5th round. So this is a chance for Shedeur to somewhat prove those, haters, shall we say, the detractors wrong, show that he shouldn't have been a 5th round pick, show that he should have been, not 140 something picks in between himself and Cam Ward in this game. So that's, of course, what Browns fans and Shedeur fans, etc., Colorado fans are obviously going to be hoping for in this game, is that Shedeur can, outplay Cam Ward and show that, maybe he should have been a quarterback that should have been viewed higher than obviously what he was in the 5th round. On the flip side, if you're a Titans fan, you are really hoping that Cam Ward outplays Shedeur Sanders in this game, because, I don't pay much attention to Titans Twitter. But I'm sure there's some Shedeur fans within Titans Twitter that probably wanted Shedeur Sanders. And if Shedeur Sanders goes out and looks like a much better player in this game, wins the game, etc., then there is definitely going to be Titans fans wondering why they took Cam Ward number 1 overall and not Shedeur Sanders number 1 overall. Don't get me wrong, I understand why they took Cam Ward 1 overall. He was my number 1 quarterback in the draft this year. I didn't view him as a number 1 pick, but he was my number 1 quarterback. But obviously, that's going to be the biggest discussion, is how do these two guys look going up against each other? Two guys that I'm pretty sure they're friends. They, everything I've seen from him, they get on quite well. But in this game, obviously, they're going to put all of that behind them and try and go out there and get the bragging rights, beat the other. And as I said, for both fan bases, fans of both quarterbacks, they're going to be hoping that their guy can go and show that, either A, they justified their draft position with a Cam Ward, or B, they proved that they were a steal and obviously shouldn't have been drafted in the 5th round with Shedeur Sanders. So that's the biggest storyline from this game. That's what most eyes are going to be on. This is going to be a not very good game, but at least if anything, we're going to get somewhat entertaining with, as I said, this kind of storyline, this matchup between two young quarterbacks, two young black quarterbacks as well, something that should never be understated in the NFL nowadays. We've come a long way from when we were claiming that these guys couldn't think the same as the white quarterbacks. So to have two young black men facing off against each other shows you how far we've come in this NFL. And obviously looking forward to what both guys can do in this game. And as I said, both fans are going to be hoping that their guy can kind of come out on top and show that they're the better quarterback prospect. But of course, one game is not going to tell us that, and especially not one game between two terrible teams. Both these teams' offenses aren't doing anything to help out these young quarterbacks. But with that being said, with what they do have in front of them, let's see what they can do. And I'm looking forward to this one, and I know a lot of people are as well. Now, the second biggest thing, which if I'm being completely honest, the only reason I didn't start with it is because I know a lot of people don't want to, but probably the biggest thing for me, when we are now 5 games out from the end of the season, sitting here with a 3-9 record, and that is draft position. As I said, at this time of the year, some teams are battling it out for playoff spots. Other teams are play fighting and playing patty cake for draft positioning. The Titans, of course, currently own the number 1 pick. They are 1-11. They own that pick outright. The Browns currently, if the season ended today, own the number 5 pick. They don't own that outright in terms of record, but they own that via the tiebreaker due to their strength of schedule. So this game is going to have massive connotations on draft positioning. If the Tennessee Titans lose this game, this is their easiest game left on their schedule. If you look at record, etc. If they lose this game, I think it all but confirms them as the number 1 pick. Losing this game all but ensures that for the Tennessee Titans. And obviously winning this game for the Browns all but ensures that they would not get the obviously first overall pick, let alone even a top 3 pick. I think would probably become out of the realms of possibility, if the Browns do win this game. Whereas if the Titans win this game, obviously if they get their second win of the season, they would still own the first overall pick. Obviously, after this weekend, it doesn't matter how any results go around the rest of the NFL. Even if they win, they will still own the first overall pick. However, it will make things a lot more interesting. Obviously, there's a couple of teams that are on 2 wins as well. And obviously, with the teams on 3 wins, then becoming in, striking distance of the Titans. Where, of course, if the Browns lose this game, then, 3-10, as I said, with, the bottom team being on 2 wins, you're within 1 win of striking distance of being on the same amount of wins as those teams. If the Browns finish with the joint worst record, they will likely have the second overall pick, probably, because the only team that has a tiebreaker over them is the Raiders. Whereas strength of schedule, and even the Raiders actually help strength of schedule. No, I'm pretty sure the Cleveland Browns actually might get the tiebreaker over the Raiders because they use the strength of schedule before they use head-to-head. Head-to-head comes in after strength of schedule. So actually, Cleveland Browns, I stand mistaken. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty 99% sure that if the Cleveland Browns finish the year with the joint worst records, they will get the number one overall pick, as because of their strength of schedule. Thankfully, the AFC North being terrible this year has helped that massively. But in terms of like analytics, ESPN, their kind of database, they have the Browns, if they win this game, their chances of, as I said, it would pretty much be impossible, would drop to under 1% of getting the first overall pick. Whereas if they lost this game, it would jump from 7.5% to 14%. Whereas the Titans, a loss would drop them from would up them, I suppose, from 47.6% to 66%, whereas a win for them would drop it to 29%. But as I said, due to the Browns having the tiebreaker, the strength of schedule, if they finish the year on 3 wins, chances that they're going to have a very good chance of getting the first overall pick. They would just need 2 more wins from the Titans, which of course would start with this game. So they would only need 1 more win from the Titans in their remaining 4 games, and then they would just need 1 win somewhere from the Saints or the Raiders or the Giants. But as I said, this is going to have massive implications on draft positioning. I think a lot of Browns fans probably are hoping that the Browns lose this game. If I'm being completely honest, guys, I am probably hoping the same. I go into every year, I've made it very clear, I'm never going to go into a season wanting to tank. I don't think you should try and tank for 17 games. I just think the negative consequence that has on your team and your culture is, so big, and most times doesn't even justify the reward that you get in the end of it if you do get that reward. Whereas, obviously when you are 3-9, you've got 5 weeks left. I'm not as bothered about making decisions that aren't exactly conducive to winning. And if that's what the Browns do in this game, then I'm not going to be too mad about it, because we all watched Fernando Mendoza last night. Someone that, again, I said last week, I've not talked about it on here because I don't really want to be that guy that's talking about draft quarterbacks in November and December of a season. But anyone that follows me on Twitter knows how big of a fan of Mendoza I am. He was my preseason QB1, has only exceeded my expectations for him. After watching him against Ohio State last night, I'll be honest, I'm happy to lose by 50 the rest of the way if it gets me Mendoza. So I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the Browns are 3-9. They would have to win out and have every other team around them in the division lose out to win the division. They're not winning the division. They lose today, they're out of playoff contention already after going into week 14. Or going into after week 14. So, there's absolutely zero reason for the Browns to win these games. What's the difference between finishing with 3 wins and finishing with 5 wins? None at all, but it does have massive, obviously, connotations on draft positioning. So, to sum it up, as I said, this is going to have a huge swing, huge implications on draft positioning this weekend. Obviously, depending how other results go as well. The Browns could finish this weekend holding either the 8th pick in the draft or the 2nd pick in the draft. So as I said, huge swing. This game is going to have massive, massive implications on draft positioning for both of these teams. And then finally, as we are doing every week now, the last thing that I'm obviously thinking about in this game is Myles Garrett chasing the sack record. He is on 19 sacks after just 12 games. 12 games, 19 sacks. Obviously, the record is set at 22.5 by Michael Strahan, and of course, thou shall not be named, the rival over at Pittsburgh Steelers. And obviously, Myles is 3.5 sacks away from the record. He needs 4 sacks to beat the record. He has 2 games this season where he does have 4 or more sacks, both coming in the last 6 weeks. So him breaking the record in this game is not out of the realms of possibility. You know, Titans quarterback Cam Ward, he has been sacked the most times in the NFL through the first 13 weeks of the season. He has been sacked 48 times in 12 games. That is more than 3 sacks a game. You know, the Titans pretty bad offensive line, weak offensive line play. You know, you pair that with Cam Ward's tendency to hold on to the ball a little bit longer than obviously you would like. That has resulted in, of course, the Titans divvying up a lot of sacks in 2025. And, you know, their right tackle, they're having problems with J.C. Latham. Their centre is out for this game. You know, that offensive line is struggling at best. Cam Ward likes to take a lot of sacks. Myles Garrett genuinely could break the sack record in this game. If he gets 4 sacks in this game and breaks the sack record and, you know, still has 4 games left to add to it, then that would be pretty incredible. Even if he doesn't break the sack record, at least add to it. Let's just step closer every week. I don't want to go into the last few weeks sweating it out, needing 4 sacks in 2 games. You know, let's at least get 1 sack and I'm going home with something. I'm going home happy. If we get a Myles sack, obviously 2 would be even better. But 4, you know, as I said, he's done it twice this season already. He's playing against one of the worst offensive lines in the league, the most sacked quarterback in the league. It's not out of the realms of possibility that Myles can break the sack record in this game. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to be a little bit harder. Obviously, he's going up against a bad offensive line, but he's not going to have quite the personnel that he's had all season with, of course, Malik Collins unfortunately being out for the season. That's obviously a big loss in that interior. Mason Graham was actually listed as questionable for this game, but he did tell reporters that he expects to play, which is good because Michael Hall was also questionable for this game. So, you know, we could have gone into this game without Malik Collins, without Mason Graham, without Michael Hall. And, you know, I've been saying all year that the biggest reason why Myles has been able to, you know, it's not that Myles is, okay, you could argue he's taken another step, but it's not that, you know, that he's just that much better this year than previous years, but it's because of that interior help that he's getting that obviously frees him up more and gives him more opportunity to get to the quarterback. And obviously if we went into this game without any of that interior help, then that of course would have been a loss. So hopefully Mason is able to go in this game. And obviously that can help out Myles, and Myles can get, you know, as I said, at least get me 1. At least let me go home with something. Let's at least edge a little bit closer to that record. But, you know, if we get 2 sacks in the first half, I don't care what the score is. Let's pin our ears back. Let's go get that record, because I want this record to be as unbreakable as it can be if he does break it. And obviously if he breaks it after 13 games, that would give him 4 games to make that truly as unbreakable. He said that his goal is 25. He obviously needs 6 in 5 games. Not out of the realm of possibility, but let's see if he can do it. But that's my thoughts on this game. As I said, not too much to talk about. This is 2 bad teams. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys talking about the schematic stuff of these 2 teams, of the 2 worst offenses going up against each other. If you want an idea on how this game should probably go, it's probably going to be a struggle. It's probably going to be a bit of a slugfest in terms of the offense. But the Browns' defense is probably going to just completely overwhelm this Titans' offense. And I expect the Browns to win this game. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't really want them to win this game, but I do expect them to win this game because I just think that defense is going to just be too good. The only way I see them losing this game is if they get, you know, an all-time bad performance from the offense or the special teams, which, to be honest, is not out of the realms of possibility because we've seen that multiple times this year already. So, obviously interested to see how this one goes. Biggest storyline is going to be Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Biggest storyline for me is obviously going to be the draft positioning. You know, people get annoyed talking about tanking. The Browns pretty much told us in the offseason that they were tanking, and if you didn't believe them then, you should probably believe them now, because just looking at this injury report for this game, I mean, Dylan Sampson questionable, Isaiah McGuire questionable, Michael Hall questionable, Mason Graham questionable, Devin Bush questionable, Wyatt Teller out, Aiden Huntington out, Jack Conklin out, Brendan Bates out, Deshaun Watson out. I will obviously talk about Deshaun Watson in the coming week, guys. One of the videos I tried to record with all of these tech problems, but that's a lot of players out. We've got KT Leverston starting at right tackle, one of the worst tackles I've ever seen in my life. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins starting at right guard. Bit of a weird situation with Wyatt Teller, him saying it wasn't actually injury related last week and now he's somehow injured and out for this game. I think they just want to get a look at Tevin Jenkins, and I'm not too mad about it because last week he looked like our best offensive lineman. If you can get a good look at him over these last few games, because I said it in the off-season, that 1 year deal is probably obviously with an eye on it extending him going forward if he's able to show you something, and he showed me something last week, and let's see what he can do this week. But as I said, Shadur Sanders versus Cam Ward, draft positioning, Myles Garrett breaking the sack record. That's pretty much the only three things that anyone should take from this game. And that's the only three things that I am obviously looking for in this game. Would it be cool if Shadur goes out there, balls out, shows that he's a great quarterback and beats Cam Ward? Of course. As I always say, I can sit here in this video and say I don't want to win this game, but when I sit there in front of the TV and my team is playing, it is hard for me to root against them. I can never do that. So I've obviously always got to cheer for them in the moment. But because of the draft positioning, because of Mendoza last night, I'm not too mad about losing this game, and I don't think anyone should be too mad about losing this game. But that's my thoughts on this week's game, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Do you want to win this one? Do you want to lose this one? Are you fail for Fernando? Or are you let's just win these games and roll into next year with Shadur, etc., etc. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing weekend. Enjoy this game. Obviously, Cavs lost, Ohio State lost, Browns might lose. Might not be the best weekend for Ohio sports, but enjoy it as much as you can, guys. And most importantly, go Browns.